Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with number 4 and the last in this first series of talks on how to listen to great music. We've been working our way through Grieg's Peer Gynt suite, and we have one work left. That work is Anitra's Dance. Now, Anitra, in case you're wondering who she is she's sort of like a belly dancer type who pops up in the Sahara Desert in Act 4 of Ibsen's play. And obviously she does a dance. Anitra's dance is just charming. It's absolutely lovely. And it's wonderful to compare it to the previous work in the suite, which is Ozzy's Death, or it's pronounced actually Åse, I understand, from some Norwegian person who corrected my pronunciation, which I was willing to tolerate just for once without banning them forever from my channel because I just love the music so much and what the heck. So Anitra does a dance, right? And the dance is scored just for strings, just like Ozzy's Death is scored just for strings. And as in the earlier piece, the strings are mostly muted, not all of them, but most of them. In the Ozzy's Death, they're all muted. And in this particular case, Grieg wants to make the music lively and light and airy and sexy and seductive. So he does a few things. First of all, he adds a triangle to add a little gleam, a little glint. You know those belly dancer types, they have the little finger symbols that they're clicking along and going very exotic, little ding, ding, click, click, click. Well, so you've got that. And then you've also got a much, much more divided up string section into many more parts than it was in the previous work. The previous work, Ozzy's Death, was mostly dark and it was all about harmony. It was all about chords. Well, this is not. This is about rhythm and it's about melody. So you've got a rhythm section, plucked strings, pluck, 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 right? You've got your rhythm section and then it's about the tune, the dance tune. And oh my, how wonderful that tune is. And I want to play you the whole thing straight through, and then we're going to talk about one of its most essential musical qualities, a musical quality that is the very essence of something that you really ought to know when you listen to great music, something that we can just touch on here, but I think you'll find it very, very worthwhile and interesting. So here, once again, is Bjarte Engeset with the Malmö Symphony Orchestra doing Anitra's Dance. So, what did we notice about Anitra's dance? Well, I have to not make an issue of it. I'll just tell you, because that's why I'm here. The thing about Anitra's dance is that one of the things that you will notice in your peregrinations throughout the universe of great music is that there are certain melodic archetypes. In other words, shapes, melodic shapes that recur over and over and over. And this one is one of the very most common of them. It's an extraordinarily frequently encountered kind of melody. Now, it doesn't say anything about what the melody expresses. We're only talking about shape and form in the abstract. Now, forget what it's about. Forget that she's doing a hoochie coochie. You know, I can't. My hooch is not coochie. But it's really an extraordinary fact that this melody has the shape A-A-B-A. Did you get that? A-A-B-A. In other words, it has a initial A section, which is the main theme. Then there's a middle section that leads back to a repeat of the A section. Now, in this case, both of those halves, A is twice, and then BA is twice, because that makes it like a little bit longer. But the basic melody, if you had no repeats, it would be ABA. But this AABA sort of theme, shape, function thing is going to go amazing places. Trust me when I tell you that. But I want to just break it up for you so you know where you are in it. That will really, I think, help a lot. So let's listen just first to the A section. Here is A for Anitra. It's very brief, right? But the middle section is quite a bit longer. And in fact, you may even notice it has a fake out, a fake return to what sounds like Anitra in the middle of it before going off again somewhere else. But the difference is that fake out, we call it that, cannot really be Anitra because it's in a major key and Anitra is in a minor key. And that's the difference. Do you know the difference between major and minor? Well, we're going to get there. Don't worry about that yet. I'm just telling you that when you think she's coming back and it sounds a little different, it's because it's not really her. Anyway, here's the second half of the melody. So that's your B-A, bit. Now, what is it about this shape that's so marvelous? Well, it happens to be, like I said, one of the most commonly encountered melodic types in the universe. And in fact, it is very, very common in pop music. in pop songs. There's so many of them, it's hard to think about, particularly up until about 1970 or so. And then pop singers and composers started using some other melodic shapes as well. But they were very, very frequently encountered also in, for example, Broadway musicals, Tin Pan Alley from the early decades of the 20th century. I mean, one example that comes immediately to mind is I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. That is a classic AABA. In other words, if you just take out that second half repeat, but leave in the first one, you get AABA. And that is so common in pop music, it's called 32-bar song form. Because it has 32 bars and a billion, zillion, trillion songs use it. It's extremely, extremely common. And it's amazing what you can do with this wonderful little form. I think this is the best way to start our talk about form, because form can be a very intimidating subject, and it can be very, very big and crazy as things get longer and louder, and but essentially all form comes down to two concepts. And those concepts are repetition and variation. If you have repetition and variation, you have form. That's all it is. And how you parcel out your repetitions and variations is up to the composer. But I want to play you now some other examples of music that uses the AABA form, or in its most primal, ABA. Because it's all about, adding repetitions. You could repeat whatever you want as many times as you want. You can have AAA, BBB, AAA. But the concept, the melody in its basic shape is an initial statement, a middle something that goes somewhere else, but returns to the initial statement. And sometimes that return may be slightly varied. Often it comes to what they call a cadence, which is a formula that brings it to a close, a satisfying close. It puts a period on the end of the sentence. And we talked about that in our discussion of Ozzy's death. And you can go back and have a look at that too if you have any questions about what that means and how that operates, because you can hear it very clearly in that piece too. But I'm going to play, let's see, where do we start? Oh gosh, there are so many things to choose. Actually, if you listen to the last talk on mourning, that is morning mood, not mourning as in death, but as the time of day, I had some examples from some other composers as well, because in these two last talks on Peer Gynt, we are broadening our horizons a little bit. And I played a little excerpt from the minuet of Haydn's 88th Symphony. Well, it just so happens that the finale of Haydn's 88th Symphony uses a theme in AABA, BA repeats again, but AABA form. And it's a wonderfully catchy tune. It's amazing, and it's very, very clear what's happening to it. So I'm going to play it for you now. It is the archetypal finale tune in classical period works. That is, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and all of their compatriots would often write finales using this kind of tune in the two halves, both repeated, AA, BA, BA, if it's repeated. So here is the finale tune from Haydn's Symphony number 88. Isn't that fun? Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing. And I just think that, one of the reasons we get to know these things is because once you zero in, you home in on the form, again, it's just like when we were talking about topics, topoi, about Grieg's morning, that the pastoral topic is something that millions of composers used. Well, this shape is something that millions of composers use. It's like building a house out of stucco. Anyone who goes and uses stucco, you'll recognize the stucco because it's stucco. Well, that's what this is. It's a stucco. It's a constructive principle of tons and tons and tons of tunes. In our musical tradition, never mind whether it's classical or not, it doesn't make any difference. We're talking about great music, not classical music. So another composer who used exactly the same type of tune, I don't even have to tell you who it is. Let's just listen to it. Yeah, that's right. It's the Ninth by Beethoven. Yeah, the symphony you can't talk about without wearing a tie. Listen, how many people listen to that tune and say to themselves, wait, it's a wonderful tune. You just listen to it for itself, obviously, and it's instantly memorable and identifiable. But how many people listen to it and then say, that's AABA? Well, it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's part of that rich tradition of AABA themes, which have a certain internal structure and formal balance. And that's one of the reasons it strikes us as so immediately catchy, because we understand the shape of it. In addition to the melody, in addition to the speed, the tempo, the orchestration, the catchiness of it all. There is a shape that we've seen before, even if we don't know that we've seen it before. And I'm going to give you another example of one. This one, it post-dates Peer Gynt. This is from the 1890s. This is the slow movement, the famous Largo of Dvorak's New World Symphony. It's one of those, another famous tune. It's a famous English horn solo, the most famous English horn solo ever written, quite probably, and just a stunningly wonderful tune. It's so beautiful it became a fake Negro spiritual when it was adapted with some sacred words. It was called "Goin' Home," but here is that melody, and it is an ABA. Actually, it's AABA. It's do 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 do. Oh, what am I doing? Here it is with Václav Neumann and the Czech Philharmonic, no less, on Supraphon. Get it? AABA. It was Paul Kletzke of the Czech Philharmonic who did the other thing that I cannot mention without wearing the tie. Now, the point I want to make here, and I think these examples make it very clear, is that the music can express absolutely anything. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be loud, it can be soft, but the shape is the same. It's exactly the same. And that's what makes this idea so interesting. If you want to get past just, I'm listening to it, it's pretty and I like it, and that's fine. And that's fine. If that's what you're doing, that's fine. But if you want to have some insight into other things that you may not have heard, or you want to have an entree, a way to listen to them and feel that you've grasped them a little bit more quickly, this is a nice way to do it. You learn a few of these little melodic archetypes, and they are so common that it becomes second nature when you hear them. You just go, it's one of those. Just as it is in a lot of the popular music and rock songs and things like that we listen to. So I want to come back to Anitra's dance because I love to close the way we opened. It has such a wonderful symmetry, right? That we have the AA at the beginning, and then the B, which is all of my blather, and then A. There it comes, the piece again. But there is another tune that is also in AABA shape, and we've already heard it in this very same Peer Gynt suite. It was the first tune we ever heard in this series of talks. In the Hall of the Mountain King. In the Hall of the Mountain King is an AABA tune. It is exactly the same as the tune in Anitra's dance. The shape of it. The sound, of course, couldn't be more different. Let's just recall that particular tune in the Hall of the Mountain King. And here, listen to it, and you'll hear it's AABA. Cool, huh? You see all the things that you can do with this simple melodic shape? It's really very, very flexible, let's just say, because it's only a structural principle. That's all it is. But if you begin to get a sense of these things, I mean this with all seriousness now, you will begin to understand that the biggest, longest, most complicated piece of music, a half hour of continuous music with no pauses or symphonies and multiple movements, they're based on these very, very simple structural principles. I mean, AABA writ large, and you can extend it indefinitely with repeats and with variations and with all this other stuff. And you can get very long, complicated, seemingly, pieces of music that really turn out not to be very complicated at all, because you will understand the underlying principle of repetition and variation that governs all of musical form. All of it. Believe me. It really does. So let's listen at last to Anitra's dance, the last in our series of the 4 pieces that comprise the Peer Gynt Suite number 1. Here she is. And that, my friends, is the Peer Gynt Suite. But we're not done talking about it, because in the next video, which will be the last in this first series of videos on how to listen to great music, we're going to do some summarizing. We're going to be talking about the bigger picture, how these four pieces fit together, why they make such a satisfying group, why we want to listen to all four of them and not just one, and go home and forget about the rest. That's a very, very important principle that I think we need to address in order to understand great music, because so much great music is not just one song. It's a multitude of things. It's a bunch of contrasting things that have been very, very carefully arranged. And we want to understand what that arrangement is and what some of the things are that go to creating a satisfying arrangement. So that will be discussion number 5. But in the meantime, enjoy Anitra. Keep on listening, my friends, and thank you so much for joining me. Take care.